Welcome back to High School Backups Podcast. You already know what it is. We're talking about college football. College Football Monday, baby. And we have some news. Excuse me as I look at the new college football playoff rankings that were just released a few moments ago. I haven't looked at these yet. This is an absolute blind reaction. But the first thing I'm seeing is that we have a new team in the top four with USC. Ohio State has been bumped to 5. And I'm kind of mad because I said this would happen in an unreleased video because the audio got messed up. But we're looking at Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC, Ohio State, Bama, Tennessee, Penn State, Washington, and Clemson rounding out the top 5. I'm assuming that means LSU took an L over the weekend because
They did.
they've dropped out of the top 10.
Oh yeah, they did. They did.
Oh, they took a fat L to A&M. That's embarrassing. Okay, I did not even see that. I was too focused on the Michigan Ohio State game and the USC Notre Dame game to pay attention, apparently. But
Yikes.
we're winding down. We've got the regular season done. Essentially, at this point, for the top 4 teams, it is win and in. So I think we're going to go through who these teams have to play, talking about Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and USC, what the path is here, who's got the easiest path, who's got the hardest path. We're going to start at the top with Georgia. I believe they're locked into playing LSU. They are. Honestly, LSU has played up and down to teams all year when you're looking at, LSU has beaten teams like Alabama. Let me just go to their schedule very quickly and look at, all the good teams that they've played. They lost to Florida State. They beat Mississippi State, who's number 25. They lost to Tennessee. They beat Florida, who isn't ranked, but I consider to be a pretty good team. They beat Alabama by a point. Losing to Texas A&M is real bad. Like, that's real, real bad. Do I think LSU competes in this game? Yes, but honestly, Georgia is going to win this. I would take Georgia by 10 in that matchup almost any day of the week. If for some forsaken reason Georgia does end up losing this game, that starts some madness at the top here, and I'm just not even going to contemplate that. Andrew, I'm on the right track. Georgia's getting a dub on that game. You think so?
Yeah, Georgia Bulldogs all day. If by chance LSU pulls out the miraculous miracle that they did against Alabama, like, yeah, that'd be a shocker to the whole nation. But I think Georgia, because they've been on such a hot streak, and even when they have coughed up points and it made it look like they weren't gonna win it, they secured everything, and that's why they're still number one in the nation.
No, that's a fact. I mean, they're undefeated. They're rolling into this game. They haven't lost all season. I don't expect them to lose to LSU, but Michigan and TCU have the easiest path forward. I mean, Michigan is playing Purdue, who I honestly believe is like 7-5. Lost
8-4.
Yeah, 8-4.
8-4.
Yeah, not. This shouldn't be a tough game. They just steamrolled Ohio State out of the top 4, and I was watching that game early on, and I just continued to I was continuously saying it, that Michigan needs to stay out of 3rd and long. They need to stay on schedule. They need to stay on schedule. And
Yeah.
they didn't even need to do that. Like,
Oh,
J.J. McCarthy looked so good it wasn't even funny. I mean, man had 3 touchdown passes of over 45 yards. It was absolutely asinine. It was so good. I loved it. But Ohio State got absolutely obliterated. There was no excuse. I don't think they even belong in the top 5 at this point. Like, that was embarrassing. You're at home and you lost by 20 plus.
see, CJ Stroud completed 31 passes for 48 attempts for 349 yards, with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, with a QBR rating of 68.6.
The,
That is not as compared to his season stats. That is just a terrible,
well, this is what I've been telling
terrible
people
game
all
for them.
along about, CJ Stroud. Again, I think he's a great quarterback prospect. I think he's going to be incredibly hard to evaluate when it really comes time for me to do my quarterback evaluations for the draft, because of the fact that when he's played, most of the games he's played, his receivers have been the NFL and college equivalent of wide open. Like,
Yeah.
3 yards of separation. Yesterday, and we're recording this on Sunday, it's going to be released on Monday. I was watching the Michigan Ohio State game yesterday. He had some tight window throws that were really good, but it wasn't consistent. He wasn't consistently putting the ball where it needed to be. He wasn't consistently hitting open receivers. And mind you, Michigan didn't really get that much pressure on CJ Stroud up until the fourth quarter when they had to throw it and Michigan just pinned their ears back. For the most part, he had a clean pocket. They got away from the run game. They didn't really do what Ohio State does, and Ryan Day simply got outcoached. But when it comes to CJ Stroud, if he's below Bryce Young on my board, I don't want anybody to be pissed off because I'm telling you, this is going to be a real tough evaluation because he's not really had to make NFL throws. Whereas Bryce Young all year long has had to make NFL throws into tight windows because the receivers haven't been as good as Alabama receivers normally are. But with Michigan, I told everybody that they could play with Ohio State. They were going to beat Ohio State. I think they can play with Georgia. I think they can play with anybody in the country. And if J.J. McCarthy is playing like he did against Ohio State, they absolutely can win a national title this year. So, honestly, Michigan's got a pretty easy path forward. They're probably going to beat Purdue by some miracle. If Purdue wins that game, we're having a whole different discussion. But, honestly, I mean, I consider them to be the 1B in the country right now, with Georgia being the 1A. I think those are the two top teams. USC is sneakily becoming one of my more favorite teams in the country, but let's go to the odd one out and talk about TCU. They have number 13 Kansas State, and honestly, Georgia, TCU, and USC have a hard path to get. Obviously, it's win and in. You control your own destiny, but Georgia's playing number 11 LSU. TCU's playing Kansas State. USC's playing Washington. And we all know what Kansas State can do. They have blown out teams that they shouldn't have blown out. They're a tough team. They're hard-nosed. I'm worried about TCU in this game, not because I don't think they can beat Kansas State. They already did once, but that only adds to my worry for TCU because they've already beat Kansas State once. Kansas State knows what they look like. They've played them before. It doesn't get easier when you play a team a second time. It only gets tougher. So what are your thoughts about TCU Kansas State?
I mean, last game it was a 38-28 game. Kansas State threw two interceptions that game. TCU had 0. Effectively, their run game was better than Kansas State's, which is going to be a huge factor into any game right now. Is if you can control the run game situation and still get some deep shots downfield. I think you can utilize that so much better. And I don't think Kansas State has the viable options to slow down that run game or the pass options in their backfield to effectively keep TCU from scoring, which I think TCU definitely has this win, but it's Kansas State. Who knows what they'll pull out their pocket since they've already played them, and who knows.
The only thing about Kansas State is that their only 3 losses have come to the only 3 ranked opponents they played. I think Oklahoma was ranked when they played them, and I think a couple of these teams, including Oklahoma State, were ranked when they played them, but they're no longer ranked, and I'm looking at it as of today. They've lost to Texas, they've lost to TCU, and they lost to Tulane, who is ranked 18 in the country right now. So Kansas State has had a very good year, but they really haven't beaten anybody that's been around their talent level. So, I mean, TCU can escape this game with a win. I wouldn't say escape. They can win this game, but they could also be fighting for their lives. This could be a dogfight. I'm genuinely thinking that this game isn't going to be easy by any means for TCU. Michigan is in control of their own destiny right now. This is Michigan should be a lock. If they lose to Purdue, that's absolutely embarrassing. But TCU has probably... Oh, wow, all of these games are tough. But I would say that TCU probably, when it comes to the teams that actually play ranked opponents, have the toughest assignment because Kansas State has already seen them, and we all know that Kansas State loves a dogfight. So with TCU, they have to get out early, and they have to get out of front early, and they have to maintain a lead. I don't think if they let if they let Kansas State hang around, that's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Kansas State, like yeah, like you said, like they play ranked opponents. They've already played TCU. Um, TCU rolling into this game, even though Kansas State was ranked 12th right now.
Yeah,
Um,
rank 13, rank 13.
they're ranked 13. Oh
Yep,
no, they're ranked 12 going into this game.
I have
Um,
Utah at 12.
it's all ESPN saying. Hold on, they're saying there he's ranked. They're ranked 12.
See, I've got LSU at 11, Utah at 12. I'm looking at the college football playoff rankings,
Ah,
which are the
yes, they
only
are
ones
13.
which are the only ones that matter at the end of the day.
Yes. Honestly, yeah, like still the fact that they're ranked that high. I mean, TCU's got to prevail this game to be able to stay in this, or else goodbye, goodbye CFB playoffs for them.
Listen, I'm absolutely loving it because the 3 out of the 4 teams are teams that aren't traditionally in the playoff. I know Michigan made it last year, but over the course of the 10, 12 years we've had the college football playoff, Michigan has been in it once, and that was last year. I'm going to
Yeah.
move to USC because they actually have an inverse situation with TCU. They are playing a team they already lost to. On October 15th, USC lost to Utah 43 to 42, and they got the ridiculous card of pulling Utah again. And as we were discussing on that unrecorded or unreleased video, we ended up there were so many different options because if Oregon beat Oregon State, which they didn't, they were in, and USC hasn't played Oregon yet. They could have played Washington or Utah, and Utah ended up being the team that got the pull. I'm worried about USC because they've already lost to Utah, but it's the same inverse of TCU, where I think because they've already lost to Utah, this team's going to be motivated to get into the college football playoff.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, I mean, I could see Georgia, TCU, and or USC losing or all losing and this blowing up and being a huge problem. Georgia probably the least likely to lose the games that they're playing. Again, USC already lost to Utah. I'm pulling up the stats from that game just to see what happened here. I mean, Caleb Williams went absolutely nuts. He threw 5 touchdown passes, but they couldn't stop Cameron Rising. He threw for 415 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 60 yards and 3 touchdowns, so he had 5 total TDs, and then they went for 2 and got it. That's what it looks like. Um,
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, it all comes down to how USC stops Cam Rising in this game. And that worries me because USC's defense has not been dominant. Their offense has been carrying them all year. So even if they put up 42 points, this game could end the same way that it did the first time. But I also don't count out Lincoln Riley and his ability to get to the college football playoff and succeed. So I'm going to go with who I think is the better head coach here and go with Lincoln Riley. What are your thoughts on
Ooh.
USC and Utah?
Uh, like I have to agree with you. Even though ESPN says that Utah has a 61.2% chance of beating USC going into that match.
ESPN not high on USC.
Yeah, no, they are not. I think that Lincoln Riley can pull it out. I mean, you got a quarterback who's thrown over 3,000 yards, over 3,500 yards, for 34 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and that is a pretty good like line for the season so far for him. You got uh, you got two top draft picks going in with Travis Dye and uh, Addison, Jordan Addison,
Yep.
receiving. Like you got such a lineup there that you brought from Oklahoma though too, as from a head coach position. You transferred all these students because they trusted you and they believed in you to go to USC. So you took a bunch of your talent. You still have it all. You can run it. This ain't gonna end up being the same old story where they lost to Utah in that first game. Now they're going to play them for a championship, and they want the bigger championship that's on the line afterwards.
Listen, I could see this game ending up in a blowout for USC because they want revenge. But again, it's like that TCU game where if they let Utah stick around in this game, it's going to be a problem.
Oh
And
yeah,
USC could very well find themselves in trouble if they are not careful. Like if they're not careful, this could absolutely be a trap game for them. I don't love it.
that's kind of what like Michigan did to Ohio State yesterday in yesterday's game, where they completely just did not let off the gas pedal, completely foot on the throat, literally was seizing out all the air from them. It just makes so many mistakes.
Dude,
And
Michigan's defense looked so good yesterday. It wasn't even funny.
oh,
They look so
well,
good.
let's just say that Ohio State's defense did not look good in the man coverage and press man coverage. Like you cannot press up on somebody and then get beat like that
At,
for
it seemed
three
like
touchdowns.
every time they pressed, they got into trouble. It was so bad.
Yeah.
And so speaking of Ohio State, I believe Ohio State and Alabama maybe, and maybe Washington. I don't think Tennessee or Penn State really have a shot. But say this all blows up, the path for Ohio State is literally one of these teams just needs to lose and they're probably in. Like one of the
Yeah.
no, Washington's not playing in the Pac-12 title game, which I thought they would be. So Washington doesn't really have a shot. I would say it's Ohio State and Alabama at this point, and Alabama on reputation alone. But all it takes for Ohio State to get into the college football playoff at this point is Georgia, TCU, or USC losing. I mean, actually, Georgia probably stays in even if they do lose. So at this point, TCU and USC. Let's just say that, right? If TCU loses, Ohio State automatically slides into the 4 spot if USC wins. If TCU and USC both lose, I think Ohio State and Alabama both slide into those 3 and 4 spots. And honestly, that would be my nightmare because I don't want either of those teams to make to the college football playoff again. I just don't. There's nothing in me that wants to see Alabama play Georgia. There's nothing in me that wants to see Ohio State play Michigan again. Like none of that would be the worst case scenario. You'd have 2 Big Ten teams and 2 SEC teams. I would be pissed.
I need a little flavor in there. Get me a Pac-12 and an ACC team in there. Even a Big 12. I just need a little bit more flavor. You know, it's just.
Dude, the ACC's best team right now is Clemson, and they're at number 10. Even with a ACC title, I don't see them winning. Like I don't see them sneaking in. That loss to South
Well, that
Carolina.
means
That loss to
the
South
else would have
Carolina
to
fucked
lose.
them.
Oh yeah.
Which again, I saw coming. I like DJ Ugalele sucked yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw what happened. He went like 9 of 28. It was
Yeah.
fucking horrendous.
Can we just say that when Trevor Lawrence was actually playing as starter, and then when DJ actually came in as backup, like he played so much better as like a backup when like Trevor Lawrence had COVID that one year, and then it's just like DJ went off, and then it's like, okay, what the fuck is this? He looks like a top prospect going into the draft when
Well,
he gets there,
At that point,
and then
they
it
had
just
weapons.
he flopped. He flopped. He's just flopped at this point.
Like DJ doesn't have the weapons that Trevor Lawrence did. I'll give him that, but there is no excuse for ever is a like what used to be considered a top tier prospect to ever go 9 of 28, especially against South Carolina. I don't care who you're throwing to. Like there is zero reason you should like 9 of 28 is historically awful.
Can you just talk about the South Carolina real quick though? The fact that they beat Tennessee
And
and,
then
they beat now
Clemson.
Clemson. Like, what is going on over there in South Carolina? Like, I want to know
honestly-
what they're doing.
Honestly, I think South Carolina was just like, fuck it, we've got nothing to lose, and just went for it. I mean, that's one of those teams that was 6 and 4 and said, you know, we can make a better bowl game and we've got nothing to lose, so we may as well spoil Tennessee and Clemson's years. That's really what happened. Genuinely, I think that's exactly what happened in South Carolina's locker room. They were like, fuck it, let's go play spoiler. And honestly, that's one of the best motivators in sports. If you like, they don't like Tennessee and they absolutely hate Clemson. It's a rivalry game for a reason. If you can go spoil Tennessee's college football playoff hopes and Clemson's in back-to-back weeks, they probably just said, fuck it, let's go do it, and did it. Like, that's really
That's
what
kind of
happened.
what happened. That's kind of what happened with my UConn football team. They spoiled a lot of teams. They spoiled Liberties and BC's. dreams of being in the college playoffs and making bowls.
Bro.
But the UConn's now bowl eligible, and they just gotta win one more game.
Don't even get me started on Boston College, dude. This was supposed to be the year that BC was like good, and Phil Jerkovich, just after the shoulder surgery, doesn't look like the same dude.
Nope.
Before he had shoulder surgery, dude was an NFL prospect, like a round 3 quarterback, and then he had to go get shoulder surgery and literally just died, like fell off the face of the earth. I'm so mad about it. Like, hopefully he heals, recovers, gets better, is actually like as he develops as a quarterback, becomes an NFL prospect again. It sucks to be a BC fan because of it. Like, I really hope he gets better and gets into the NFL and plays well, because the dude is actually legit. The dude can play. Just the shoulder surgery fucked him up. So sad.
Oh, yeah.
And moving into the Alabama college football playoff hopes, this is where I say everything has to go wrong, because everything has to go wrong for Alabama to make the college football playoff at this point. TCU has to lose to Kansas State, and USC would have to lose to Utah. Neither of those teams have a shot at making the college football playoff. Like, they're not jumping up from 12-4 or 13-4. Like, it isn't going to happen. So I'm hoping and praying that TCU and USC both get a win, because I really don't want to see Ohio State or Alabama in the college football playoff. Like, I just don't. I want to see neither of those teams. I hope all of the top 4 win out. This is an ideal college football playoff scenario for me. Ohio State and Alabama still have a chance. I guess that's really all I have left to say about it, but I'm really hoping this current top 4 stays. If it's Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and USC, I'm obviously going to take Georgia and Michigan to be in the title game. And at that point, I think Michigan gives Georgia a dogfight and Michigan wins. But we'll see how it goes. I could also see USC with their offense upsetting Georgia in round 1. I don't think TCU beats Michigan, but weirder things have happened. And so, honestly, with the top 4, assuming those are the 4, who's your favorite? Is it Georgia?
Well, see, when the season started, I was an Oregon fan because Bo Nix.
Hey,
my Bo Nix. But, you know, with them sitting all the way down at the bottom half of the top 25, you know, my favorite out of the top 4 right now would have to be Michigan, because so many years of saying this was his year, this is our revenge tour and everything. Like, nah, like, you got to finish it now. Like, you're here, you're in the moment, you got to win this conference championship game, you need to secure your wins going into the finals and just get it done.
I will also say that Michigan didn't even have Blake Corum yesterday, which makes their win even more impressive. At this point, I mean, I love Michigan. I would love to see TCU win it all just for the fuck of it. Like, just for the fucking shit of it. Like, just TCU out of nowhere. USC would also be a good story, just like Lincoln Riley going to USC and bringing a storied program back to the top. Honestly, the worst situation here is that Georgia gets another national title, which is fine for me. Like, it's fine. It is what it is. But any of the 2 through 4 teams, if they win, I'm going to be so happy it's not going to be even funny.
Yeah, TCU is just the biggest, like, haha, we made it. But guess what? Our program's probably going to go to shit after this season.
I have no idea how they're here, dude. I'm happy for TCU.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like they're just literally laughing in everyone's faces right now, just being like, "Hey, we made it here to the finals. I don't know how the hell we did it.
Like,
we're here."
Like, the skill discrepancy between TCU and the other 3 teams, at least like Power 5 conference wise, is absolutely astronomical. But honestly, on that note, I've got nothing more to add. Do you have anything left to say?
I got nothing else.
Alright, guys, just make sure to go like those socials, like, subscribe, comment underneath, tell us what your thoughts are. Make sure to go follow us on social media, High School Backups on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You know how it goes. We'll see you next time. Peace.